Thank you for joining us for a special Florida by the Numbers edition, where we're going to be discussing childhood poverty data.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Donahue, Director of Mission Advancement and Board Development for the Florida Prosperity Initiative.
And I'm Sheridan Morby, Senior Research Economist for the Florida Chamber Foundation. Thank you for joining us today for an update on Florida's latest childhood poverty numbers. So one of the questions that we hear the most is, why is the Florida Chamber Foundation focused on childhood poverty?
Sure, great question. So Sheridan, it really harkens back to the Florida 2030 Blueprint. This plan is centered all around moving Florida from the 15th largest global economy to the 10th by 2030. This includes addressing topics such as transportation, education, and the quality of life. But under that quality of life initiative, we're focused on cutting childhood poverty in half by 2030. To address these challenges, the Florida Prosperity Initiative has identified 10 root causes of poverty. Now, these same root causes that can get you into poverty are the same ones that we hope will get you out of poverty. So we're going to take a look at some of the data across our state.
At the state level, childhood poverty declined by 0.4 percentage points this year. Florida is now at a childhood poverty rate of 16.5%. That's about 711,000 children who are living in poverty statewide. That's progress. It shows that we're moving in the right direction. But one thing hasn't changed, and that's that childhood poverty remains highly concentrated. So 15% of Florida's zip codes are home to half of all the children living in poverty. And that's why targeted, neighborhood-based solutions matter, and why business leadership is so important.
And we can also gain further insights when we break out this data by age. You want to take a look and tell us what's happening, what you're seeing across with these data points?
Yeah, so we can look at this by age range, and two trends stand out when we look at that. So the first is that ages 65 and older is the one age range that actually saw an increase in the poverty rate over the last year. And it's hard to pinpoint one reason for this, but we do know that rising costs have placed pressure on retirees, especially those on fixed incomes. So that's one thing we're seeing. And many have had to rely more fully on savings, which tightens those household budgets over time. Another interesting age range here is Floridians who are under 5. So looking at those under 18, we can see that childhood poverty rate is 16.5%. But if you isolate that to just under 5 years old, we see a much higher poverty rate. It's about 18%. So that under 5 age range has those higher poverty rates, whereas the poverty rate for ages 5 to 17 is actually lower than that overall under 18 rate. A few things could be at play here. So those parents with children under 5 are typically in earlier life stages and earlier stages of their career, which could mean lower earnings. And we also know that childcare costs in Florida are a big pressure point, and that could be a player here as well.
Thank you so much, Sheridan, for providing some of those insights. And we also know that reality can vary by county. So to better understand what's happening locally, you take a look at the floridascorecard.org for more information.
Yeah, so there on the Florida Scorecard, you can explore county level data and see what that reality is in your area. So looking at that county level data, we can see that Gadsden County actually has the highest childhood poverty rate in the state, compared to St. Johns County is where we're seeing the lowest. So if you're wondering where your county falls in between those, you can find that on the scorecard. We can also dive a little bit deeper to see how those poverty rates have changed over the last year. So Hamilton County has seen the greatest improvement over the last year, while Hardee County has experienced the greatest regression. So if you look at Hamilton County, there was actually a drop of 17.9 percentage points from 2023 to 2024. And so that's a pretty significant drop, and there's a lot of promising things happening there. We can see that in that change over time. But on the flip side, you can look at Hardee County that has seen an increase of 5.2 percentage points over the last year. So looking at this heat map, if you want to see what's happened in your county, those green counties have seen a decline in their childhood poverty rates year over year, and those red counties have seen an increase in childhood poverty rates year over year. This data is at the county level, but we can also look at this at a more community level, and we can do that by looking at zip codes. So the Florida Gap Map has zip code level data for poverty rates and a lot of other quality of life metrics. So if you want to know what the childhood poverty rate is in your specific community, you can do that on the Gap Map.
And one of those metrics found on the Florida Gap Map is related to housing.
Yeah, so on the Florida Gap Map, we have housing cost burden, and that means the percentage of households that are spending 30% or more of their income on housing. We also have this on the scorecard. So, to give you a little bit more information on that, the median renting household in Florida earns just over $53,000 a year, yet rents average about $1,700 a month. This means that renters are paying a median of over $20,000 a year for housing. That's almost 40% of their total income over the year. And that's before transportation, childcare, or groceries. So housing costs remain a pretty serious challenge that we must continue to address. And we're encouraged by the progress that we're seeing, but there's still a tremendous amount of work ahead.
That's why partnerships matter. Businesses can engage as statewide advisory board members, county or zip code partners, or root cause partners. We are so appreciative of the Sheriff's Association, United Way, Career Source, and partners in higher education across the state, really helping us to advance this initiative. And we couldn't do this work without the support and investment from our advisory board members who are leading this movement. If your business cares about childhood poverty, we invite you to get involved. Reach out to us and help change the trajectory of so many children and families across Florida. And as we continue this important conversation, we invite you to join us June 9th in Tampa for the 2026 Florida Prosperity and Economic Opportunity Summit. This is where leaders and policymakers and businesses just like yours across the state come together to really connect and discuss solutions that are grounded in data. There is another way that you can stay involved with us is stay connected through our monthly newsletter, as well as our upcoming webinars where we address the root causes of poverty throughout the state and the solutions that are working to address those root causes. Scan the QR code now. Thank you so much. And thank you, Sheridan.
Of course.